Hello there and welcome to this training. My name is Tobias and hey, thank you so much for signing up. I'm so excited to have you here. In this training, I'm going to teach you brand strategy in the most simple way that I could possibly imagine that you can do brand strategy. It's something I've been working on for close to 15 years. I've been doing hundreds and hundreds of brand strategies with companies, and I figured out a way to make it really simple. And I want to teach you that method. It's a framework which is actually based on just one question. And that one question requires that you answer a few other questions, but it's going to be very simple, and you can actually create a brand strategy in an hour or less. Now, I'm not someone who would advocate for you to just spend 1 hour doing brand strategy, but it will definitely kickstart or clarify, your brand in an hour, or you could of course spend much more time with it if you like. It's just that the fact that so many companies out there, so many clients I work with, particularly entrepreneurs and smaller companies, they never really define their brand, and they really suffer because of that, because having a strong, clear idea about who you are and how you're different, how you're going to make a difference in people's lives is kind of just a starting point for everything. So if you don't have that foundation, it's going to be very difficult to build a strong and differentiating brand, one that makes you money and lets you have impact in the world. Okay, so toward the end of this training, about 3/4 into this training, I'm going to use my program called Brand Mastery. And Brand Mastery is something I worked on for over a year by now. It's a full brand and business transformation program. And I'm going to make a special offer for you. So I really hope that you stick around until the end. It doesn't mean that I'm going to keep selling you on the program, leading up to that point. I'm going to actually teach the heck out of this material. And so you can really create a brand strategy by not taking part of my program. That's not the intention. It's just for those of you that maybe need some help and really want to go beyond the core strategy, who really want to take a full, look at the brand and really need a guide and a kind of a playbook for that. But let's park Brand Mastery for now and let's get into the training. So again, so excited to have you on board, and let's get on with the program. Again, I really hope that you stick around toward the end because I have something special for you there. And I believe if you really go through this exercise, if you really work with these questions I'm going to give you, it can really create a breakthrough for you. I've seen it happen so many times, and I know this thing will work for you as well. So stick around and let's get into the program. As I said, I've been working for almost 15 years. I've been working with hundreds of organizations, hundreds of brand strategy projects. And what I always saw was that, there's so many definitions in this kind of brand jargon, and, from brand vision and mission and brand purpose and brand identity and brand promise and brand personality and brand story and brand image. And there's just so many different words that people get really confused. And so for most of the companies, what they need is to make it really simple. So I started asking myself, how can I remove some of the stuff that maybe isn't so important and really deliver the very core of brand strategy? And so what I came up with was brand strategy in one question. Now, I know it sounds like a little bit too stripped down, but really to answer one question, which you will learn here, it is really the most important question, I believe, for your brand and your business. In order to answer that question, you're going to have to answer a few other questions. And that way, you really have a brand strategy in an hour or less. As I said, I've been an entrepreneur for some 11 years by now. I started 3 multi-million companies. I've had my ups and downs. I've had good years. I've had bad years, just like the normal entrepreneurial story, I guess. Like I said, I've done 15 years of consulting, large companies, small companies, multinational, global, local startups, everything, you name it, I've done it, and worked with hundreds of brands. I've also helped a lot of companies create new offerings, so new products, new services, new concepts, brand experiences, the whole thing. I've been working in the brand area, and for me, brand is business and business is brand. So I work really strategically and very broadly, so combining strategy with design. So that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 20 years of my, and 15 years as a consultant. Okay, but that's enough about me. You can find more at thefutureacademy.com. You can read more about my story. Or you could go to wonderagency.com. That's my consulting business. But let's park that for now and let's get into the training. So let's first talk about brand strategy. What is brand strategy? And to be able to answer that question, let's start with what a brand is, because everyone knows kind of what a brand is, and I think you probably know it as well. But sometimes people think that a brand is something different than what it really is. A lot of people mistake a brand for something visual. They, at worst, people think it's a logo or a message, but really a brand is something intangible, something that lives in the mind. And my friend and mentor, Marty Neumeyer, says it better than anyone else, I believe. He says a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product or a service or a company. And so I think that's really great. It's really great definition because it really implies that, we make a snap judgment. We kind of, we see something, a piece of branding, like whether it is a logo or a product, or we have an experience, and it affects our gut feeling. It's never really an exact thing. It's a feeling, it's a thought about, someone. It could be a person, could be a product, could be a service, could be a company, or a combination of all those. So the way I define it, not as nice as Marty, perhaps, but I think it's good to also mention that a brand is a kind of a sum of the perceptions that people have. And it really, could just also call it meanings, because the way that we think of, let's say the Coca-Cola bottle right here, whether we like it or not, whether we like not just the taste and the contents, but also what Coca-Cola stands for, that's going to ultimately affect whether we're going to choose it or not. And customer choice is the most important thing in business, because that's the only way that you can create revenue, by having people choose you. The more people you have choose you, the better. The higher price they choose you at, even better. And the frequency, how often they buy from you or choose you. These are the only three ways that you can create revenue. So customer choice is key. And between you and the company, lies the perception, the meanings that people attach to you, whether your personal brand, your business, your product, your service, or a combination of it. That is the brand. So the brand is not just some like hot air that create around your product. It's kind of a binary question. Is this for me? That's what people are asking. Is Coca-Cola for you? It's either yes or no. And so you're either someone who buys from them or you're not. So a brand is really, really central to your business. It's not something that we should think of only as marketing or some added value. The brand is your business, because it's really why or why not people choose you. So think about other brands. Volvo's kind of a textbook example of a brand that has been really well positioned. So positioning meaning just that people think of Volvo in a certain way. And they've been kind of drilling down this idea that Volvos are safe. And so that's a very clear positioning. And now at some point they deviate a little bit. They try to be sporty. I think they lost their way a little bit. Now they're coming back to this idea of safety, which they pioneered already a long time ago. But really, when you think about it, how do you know that a Volvo is safe? And are they safer? Of course, they do their crash test dummy, the experiments, and they have statistics and so forth. But really, how do we know that they're safer? Because we just make it up. We make up this idea that the Volvo cars are safe. But really, if you haven't crashed in, many different car brands, how would you really know that they're safer? The truth is we don't know. So we make a snap judgment. We don't, our brains work in a way that we try to create patterns. So we get a few pieces of information and our brains kind of decide what we believe, and then we establish a meaning inside our head, and that becomes the brand. And the more people that do that, that's really what creates the brand. And that becomes your most important business asset. There's nothing more important thing for you to cultivate and nurture and grow than your brand, because it's really the reasons why people will choose you or not. Anyways, so to transition from brand and defining brand, let's go into a little bit toward brand strategy. Like, what is brand strategy and why does it exist? And the way I just want to explain this is to illustrate a very simple example. Let's say you have two coffee beans like you have on this in this slide here. Now you could ask yourself, okay, if you'd had to choose one of these, which one would it be? It'd be really difficult, right? Like we know this, these coffee beans have been roasted, so there might be some quality differences, but we can't tell because we don't have any information. Now then, let's say two companies, they apply different strategies and they, refine the bean and turn it into something else. So there we go to the next slide, and now we have Starbucks, Frappuccino, versus another European, northern, Italian brand called Illy Cafe. And so these are two different brands with two different brand strategies. Like the Starbucks is a coffee retailer. They've added a lot of other stuff into this. And on the other side, we have Illy, which just sell beans in a very cool kind of can. But they're very different. Their price point is different, but they're two completely different offerings. And the point I want to make with this is that the brand strategy is really the core where you define how you want people to perceive you. How expensive or how premium you want to be, how affordable you want to be, what are the things you want people to think of you, and who do you want to choose you. And so the brand strategy is kind of the heart of your business strategy as well, because in your business strategy, you want to really make clear how you're going to deploy your resources, where you're going to focus, and how you're going to reach your objectives. And the brand is really like that customer-facing part of your business strategy. So the way I like to define it is that your brand strategy is kind of just a plan for how you want people to think and feel about you, and that, of course, determines whether or not they will choose you. And so your brand strategy, in that sense, becomes really that kind of that organizing principle for your business if you do well. So, as I said, your business is dependent on customer choice, and your brand essentially is why or why not customers will choose you. The most important thing for customers is relevance. People are constantly going around asking themselves, is this for me? Is this a brand for me? You might know of so many different brands in your life. There's some of them, like let's say a store, for example. You'll never walk into a certain store, even if they keep bombarding you with advertising, because it's not for you. So, relevance is the key number one factor when it comes to building a brand. The second one is differentiation, which we're going to talk about. So, again, in the spirit of simplicity, this is how I look at this. You have a spectrum of customer choice. Like, I don't know, if you think about yourself, if you're in business, try to really position yourself on this spectrum here. On the one hand, we have commodities. So a commodity means that you offer product, service, or whatever it is you offer customers, but people can't really tell how you're different. So you're similar, and when you're similar, you kind of become average, even boring to customers, because they don't really care about whether they choose you or whether they choose something else. And that means price becomes the most determining factor. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you are, can be the only choice to people. I call that, the holy grail of business. Being the only choice to people is because, the reason why it's so valuable is because, if they think of you as their only choice, they're not going to be as sensitive to price. They're likely going to buy from you at higher prices. They're going to buy from you more often. Now, you become the only choice, where you have to be highly focused, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the way brands work is really actually quite simple. Your job is to move as close to that uniqueness as possible, to always make sure that you don't slip into mediocrity, which I believe to be the worst place in business. When you're mediocre, people don't notice you, they don't pay attention to you. You're going to be competing completely on price. They're not interested in you. So that's a really, really crappy place to be, especially where every category is like more or less overcrowded with options today. And so on the other side, you could be the only choice where people think, that, there's just one viable choice for me. And according to a study I did recently with the University of Delft, we found out that people are on average willing to spend 69% more to get that only choice brand, so that's how important it is. For some brands like Apple, it was way over 100%, which of course explain how they can price their product so much higher. But I think you get the point. So that's really the essence of the game of brand building, is really to make sure that you keep yourself away from mediocre land, because that's the worst place. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about before we get into the actual brand strategy framework is that, you know, the two most important things that are likely holding you back from growth and from profitability are these two things. First of all, there are too few people who know you. And this is, I call this the marketing problem. So this is something that most of us are suffering from in some way. Like, we always wish that there were more people who knew about us. Like, first of all, if people don't know you, they can't buy from you. They can't choose you. That, you know, makes a lot of sense, right? And so this marketing problem is not something we're going to deal with in this training. But this is one of the things that you need to crack in order to grow, in order to be profitable. Now, the second thing is too few people choose you. And so, first of all, they have to first know you. But the second thing is then they have to know why they should choose you, and they have to want to choose you. And this is more of a differentiation, brand strategy, and innovation problem. So typically this has to do with your offering. So you have to get these two questions. You have to have great plans, and you have to do great things to address both of these to grow. And that's really how simple it is. You have this kind of marketing issue, and you have this other thing which we're going to deal with right now, which is about being really clear about why people should choose you. And that brings me to the brand strategy question. So there is one question I want you to work with, and by answering this question through a couple or a few other questions leading up to the main question, you will have a brand strategy. And you can do this in an hour or less. So, are you ready for it? Are you ready for the question? Here it goes. Here is the most important question you can ever ask yourself when it comes to your brand offering, when it comes to your brand. Why should they choose us? From the perspective of you, of course. Why should they choose us? Now, for you to be able to answer this question, we're going to have to break it down into some sub-questions. First of all, and this is where I think you should start by asking yourself, who are they in this question? So, they refer to your ideal customer. And one of the biggest problems I see is that companies are not clear enough, they're not clear enough about who their ideal customer is, and they don't understand them particularly well. And so for you to create something that is extraordinary in their opinion, for them to think of you as their only choice, you have to be really clear about who they are. So this refers to, their identity. And what you should do is just write down, on top of your head, start thinking about who is the most potential customer for you and for your business. Now, after you've done this whole exercise, I would go out and actually try to meet with real people. And better than just meeting them, I would interview them and I would observe them in the environment where they go about doing things, trying to reach the goals that they have within the context of what you do, within the context of your business. So who are they is the first thing. Write down the best possible description. Don't try to make it perfect. Just write down, take 10 minutes to write down, how would you describe your ideal customer? What are they like? Who are they? Not just, how much do they earn, how old are they, like the demographic stuff. Just like psychographics as well. What are they like? How do they think? Just describe them, and you could add some pictures and try to really make it very clear for you, and especially have your team make it really clear, so that people really understand, who your ideal customer is. Now, the next part is asking yourself, what motivates them? Now, this refers to, the fact that everyone buys improvement. We all buy improvement. So we want to be better off. So when we buy something, we do it only for the reason that we want to be better off. Now, your job is to understand what motivates them. And I like to think of it in 3 levels. So number 1, you can ask yourself, what do they want? And that really refers to the outcome that they want, like the big result that they want. Do they want to be fit? Do they want to be healthy? Do they want to connect? Do they want to belong? What is like the number 1 thing that they want as a result of doing business with you or buying from your brand or from any other brand. Now, you also might want to dig a little bit deeper and ask them questions that relate to how they want to get there. So an example of how would be the journey, the experience. So, you can differentiate yourself in the space of the how, and let me explain what I mean by that. So, let's say there are two competing brands and they all, make the same job happen for you. So let's say you drink that cup of coffee, there's a different taste, but let's say you're satisfied after that cup of coffee. Now, the way that people experience that cup of coffee, could make all the difference. Whether you're sitting in a Starbucks enjoying it, in that environment, or if you're doing it at home, or if you're, whichever way you're enjoying it, there's a different experience. So that's really the how. And the way you want to interview people is you want to ask them about what steps they have to go through to have their outcome, to make that outcome. What are the pains along that way? What do they fear? And what is it they want to happen during the journey? And then there's one more level. Keep asking them why. Try to really understand their belief system. Try to really understand what motivates them from a kind of value and belief point of view. And when you put together these different levels, you're going to have a really rich piece of understanding. And really, the key is to understand more about your customer than anyone else. If you do that well, you're setting yourself up for creating more value for them than anyone else. And that is the key. You want to create more value, and you want to do something for people that no one else does. Okay, let's move forward. So who are they? What motivates them? The next question is, what are their other choices? And so again, spend some time thinking about not just who are your competitors. Look at this from their perspective. Think about your ideal customer and think about their situation. Really try to empathize, and then ask yourself, what are choices for them? What are the other alternatives? Sometimes it's like doing nothing or doing it yourself. But how can you really understand their mind and really put yourself in their mind and their situation and understand what they're likely to think about when it comes to their choices? This will really give you some context. So you're thinking about the ideal customer, what motivates them. You're thinking about their other choices. So that's like looking around at the world around you. It's the competitors, but it's also other potential choices. Then you get to yourself. So then you start looking at yourself and asking yourself, well, who are we? And this question, in traditional brand strategy terms, would relate to brand identity. And so brand identity, or it could also be brand purpose. But let's forget about those complex terms, and let's just ask ourselves, who are we? What are we like? Why do we exist? Really try to describe yourself. And when I say yourself, I want you to really think about your brand. So whether you're a personal brand, or whether you're kind of just a sub-brand under your company name, whatever it is, but think of the brand and describe it. What is it like? If it was a person, what would it be like? And I think really values is the way to go. Like, don't make it too complicated. You could write down a lot of different attributes. You could write down personality traits. But really, what I would do is to keep it simple and just write down a couple of values or beliefs. Just something that you can really describe yourself very easily. Because the more you add to this, it's going to be very difficult to execute and everything. So make sure with everything you keep it super simple. Okay, so we went through who are we, and then we get to the last one, which is what is our unique brand offering? And a unique brand offering means now that you have an understanding for your target group, in other words, your ideal customer, have an idea for what motivates them, you have an idea for what you're competing against, and you have defined yourself, who you are, what you stand for. Now it's time to do sort of the most important part of it, which is really thinking about what is it that we offer. And the key here is not to think that your offering is your product or your service. People don't buy products and services, they buy what those do for them. And so now it's time to really put together a cocktail of value. And what I mean by that is, you want to think about it from their perspective again and ask yourself, a unique brand offering could be an emotion. What is unique about what you do? You might do a lot of things for people. You have some wonderful features in your product. Don't get me wrong, they're all important, but really think about what is that thing that makes it unique. And typically nowadays, that's an emotion or a meaning or an experience. It's not the actual product or the service. But I don't know what it is for you, but you have to work with this question. So as you've gone through these 5 questions, then you're ready for the brand strategy question, because this is about preparation, and then comes the actual brand strategy question. Why should they choose you? And a way for you to answer that is to use this little framework here. Here's how it works. And here you insert your ideal customer, just a short description for these and these people, which you now have a good idea for who they are. Who, and then you add what it is that they want to achieve. That's that big result. It could be that emotion, it could be the belonging, it could be the destination, it could be being fit or healthy, it could be whatever it is. So for this and these people who want to achieve something, we are the only, and this is going to be a bit difficult, we're the only. And then you define your brand. And when you define your brand, what you do is you provide some context, because you're not going to be able to be the only one in the world and be relevant at the same time. That would be super, super difficult. And I don't think there are many, if any, brand in the world that can do that. Maybe Google is close to that, or someone else. But the most important thing is that you are unique within a context. So we are the only coffee brand. Well, that would be very, very broad. It would be very difficult to be the only coffee brand that provides a unique benefit. So then so these 2 things, the last 2 things here, the category and the unique thing that you do for them, they are related. So the broader the definition of your category, is the more specific your uniqueness has to be, and vice versa. So if you define your category very narrowly, then you don't have to be as unique within that category. I hope that makes sense. So if you call yourself the only coffee that offers a rich chocolatey flavor, I wouldn't believe that would be unique. But if you said we are the only Australian urban on-the-go coffee and then you add some benefits, then you're getting somewhere. So the key to building a strong brand is really in the focus, is in the differentiation. Start by being super focused about who you're for. Start by, continue that by becoming super focused and clear about what you do for those people. So essentially, it's kind of like a matching game. You have to choose your target, and then you have to understand them better than anyone else, and then you create something for them that just becomes extraordinary, something that becomes irresistible to them. And this tool will help you do that. So I hope that gave you a lot of value. And again, if I were you, I'd probably watch this again and go through this and really make notes, and then work with these questions, because they can really create a breakthrough for you, as it has for so many companies I've been working with. So again, the reason I did this, the reason I created this framework was for people like you to be able to create a brand from scratch, a brand strategy from scratch, or clarify your existing brand. Because the majority of companies, they never get their brand strategy right. They're not focused enough, they're not differentiated enough, they're not clear about who they are, why people should choose them. And as a consequence, they don't really know, what guides them. And that means when you're not really clear, you're not going to make the best decisions, and you're easily going to dilute yourself and becoming too many things to too many people. And that leads to mediocrity. And you know how I feel about mediocrity. It's the worst place in business. So the best place is to be highly focused and focus on, laser-like on certain people and satisfying them better than anyone else. And in fact, a lot of the great brands, if not most of them, they started that way. You think of Patagonia, they were highly focused in the beginning. Nike was highly focused in the beginning. It was just like some running geeks that, were into Nikes before it kind of exploded. So you have to start small and work yourself forward from there. So then now we get to the point where I want to expand your thinking a little bit. So this is the core brand strategy question. Now, when it comes to building a brand, there are a lot of other questions that you need to be working with. There's a lot of other things that you need to be doing to make it right. And again, I said earlier that your brand is your most important business asset. And by now, you should understand why I'm saying that. The reason is that the value of your business is directly linked to the quality of the relationships you have with your customers, because the customers are the only people that can bring in money, and whether they choose you or not is everything. Everything else in your business is secondary, and that's why it's so important to build a brand. And so I want to introduce you just briefly to my signature program. If you're interested in doing this, taking this to the next level with me, then I have a program which I've been working on for about a year by now, and it's called Brand Mastery, and it will teach you a simple strategy for building a brand, and it comes with 6 modules, and each of these modules, they represent one of 6 areas that account for the most important areas that you need to create value in and continually attend to create a great brand. Because, a brand is like a system, and a business is a system. All these things, you have these different things that need to work together. And if they don't, it's going to be very difficult to create massive value, to create more value for people than anyone else. And so just, quickly, what is this? So it's an online course that comes with a lot of support to help you really implement. It's very results focused. It features some 70 video lessons split into 6 modules, like I said, and you can consume it at your own time. So you'll get access to this resource. And it also comes with a really broad toolkit, which is the brand playbook. I call it the brand playbook. And the way I wrote this thing is about 125 pages long. It's filled with tools. So first I explain everything, which I also do in the videos. It's also explained in the workbook, but also you will have a lot of different tools. And all these tools were designed to answer the most common brand challenges that you will ever encounter. So, these 6 areas of brand mastery, which I call them, they are essentially about pinpointing all the most important challenges that you will ever encounter when you're building a brand. Because what I realized over the years is that, companies have so many different problems, but really when it comes down to, asking why enough times, so getting to the root cause, you understand there are only a handful of really important problems and challenges that you need to work with to build an extraordinary brand. And so I cover all of those in this program, and that's why I have a broad toolkit. As you can see, these are just some images from the playbook, but these are all designed to help you focus, to help you create value, help to build your brand strategy, and much more, as you will see. Now, the core of this program is built around something which I call the only strategy. And I already talked about this, so now you should have an understanding, a basic understanding for what that is. But it's a little bit broader than just the brand strategy part. So again, remember the spectrum of choice. So you don't want to be mediocre, you want to be the only choice. So how do you become an only choice brand? Well, you do that by becoming really focused and focusing only on the vital few things that matter. So being very specific about your customer, understanding them better than anyone else, and then focusing on building something extraordinary for them, and then building your business operations, your marketing, all the things that we're covering in the course, to focus only on the things that matter. Because again, you want to prune out, you want to weed out everything else from your business so that you can become more relevant and connect with people. And that is the key to profitability. Sometimes that could even mean that you first shrink your business because you want to get rid of everything that doesn't belong there, and then you start scaling it up with profitability. profitability is the key. It's not about how big you are, it's about how profitable you are, because that's essentially what's going to pay for that growth, but also for your lifestyle, and to help you reach more people, to have more impact, and ultimately have more impact in your own life as well. Okay, so that's the only strategy. And then I mentioned the course is built around 6 areas. So I call it the 6 areas of brand mastery. All of them are absolutely vital to building a brand in today's hyper-competitive world. Let me just briefly show you what these are. So there's one module. The first module is on foundation. And foundation is essentially about getting your mind right. It's really about setting goals. It's about getting a deeper understanding for what I call the brand mindset. The brand mindset meaning that you have to think of your brand and your business in a certain way to do the right things and to set yourself up for success. Some of those things are, for example, to really understand that it's not about products and services. It's really about value. And so there's a whole section on brand fundamentals there. We're also going to work with your own goals. We're going to work with a design thinking toolkit. There's really a lot of tools there just to set you up for success for the rest of the program. The second part is about your customer, and that is really where I give you a full blueprint for how to go out and capture the motivations that we talked about from your customers. So it's the what. Let's start with first the who. So it's going to help you decide who your ideal customer is. It's about researching the what, the how, and the why. And so I provide a full research guide. And I have a tool there called the Customer Blueprint, which is really about extracting all that information and knowing exactly how to turn that into those insights that present the opportunity for you to create more value and being different. The third module is about strategy, and that's really what we were doing. We were actually doing a sub-part, one exercise within the strategy module today, which kind of makes you probably understand how broad this course is. So brand strategy is essential. It's really about discovering that onlyness, which you hopefully worked with right now. And then comes the big task of translating those insights, translating your strategy into a total brand offering. And that's, again, that's really where the rubber meets the road. The total brand offering creates the experience and the meanings, and that's really what establishes that brand and the brand inside people's minds. And then we have a module on engagement. Engagement for me is the most important word in marketing today. Really, if I could make this course even broader, I would call this the marketing machine and really build everything, all the marketing tools in here. Again, this is about developing relationships. It's really about answering question number 1, if you remember, of the 2 challenges. Not enough people know you. So this is about really building relationships, making sure that you have fresh new leads coming in all the time. Really about being very systematic about building relationships. And finally, and probably the most important thing, is to make this whole thing work by building a brand operating system. It's something I teach in the final module. And when you put all these pieces together, you will have your own brand playbook. And so you'll go through this whole process. It might last, it might take you a month, or it could take you even more than that. But more importantly, once you've worked at your brand from all these different perspectives, all these different areas, it works as a tool which you can go back to whenever you feel like you have a problem. And you have all these tools in the workbook, which means you can go and you could even use these to facilitate your own workshops, because these tools have been tested and they really work well. So you can go in and work on your customer, work on your strategy, work on your offering, work on your marketing, work on your operations. So you can do that forever. So it's yours to keep, obviously. So that's what brand mastery is all about. And if you want to read more about it and check it out, there's a video that where I explain this more in detail. You can find it at thefutureacademy.com/brand mastery. So now the question is brand mastery for you? And really, if you have a question, just send it my way. You can send it to hello@thefutureacademy.com, or just leave a question here, and I'll do my best to answer it as quickly as possible. You can also go to our Facebook page. You can find it at facebook.com/thefutureacademy.now, and I'll be happy to answer any question you might have about this program. So when it comes to these types of programs, I just want to say, if you are serious about getting results, if you're serious about implementing that stuff, not just learning intellectually, but actually implementing them and getting results, this program can do that for you. It can really transform not just your brand, but your business, And so the way I approach this typically is I think that online programs or coaching programs or masterminds, they're a way for me not to spend money and spend time. I think of them as they exist to save me money and save time, because they're an investment. You can spend a lot of years trying to figure things out, for yourself. There's a lot of free content out there. You can really do that, but it's going to take a lot of time. And sometimes it's much smarter to enroll in a program like this and have it all thought out and served so that you can make faster progress. And that's really what the Future Academy is all about. I want to provide simple, powerful tools that will help you get to your goals faster. Because I know, I read over 1,500 books in my career about, business and psychology and branding and design and innovation. And I've done like countless courses. Only this year, I've spent over $20,000 on courses because I want to go places faster. And so that's the reason why I believe that, self-education is so important, and courses like this and programs like this are so important to get to where you want to go faster. So if this is something that sounds interesting, or if you're on the fence, if you have some questions, just send them my way, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can, because I really want you to try this out. As you will see as well, if you go to thefutureacademy.com/brand mastery, is that I've included a full money back guarantee, which means you can enroll, you can download the whole 125-page brand playbook. You could start looking at the courses, start going through them. Maybe you get through the whole program, who knows? And then you can decide whether this is for you or not, because I want you to love this, and I think I know you will love this. So I want you to give it a go. I've taken out the whole risk factor. I'll give you all your money back if you don't like it. So, for the love of God, just give it a go. You won't regret it. And if you would regret it, you'll get your money back if you do it within 2 weeks. So if you're ready, let's do this. I would love to work with you. Again, like I said, this is an online program, but I'll be there. I'll be covering your back with implementation, with questions all along as you go through brand mastery. I really hope that you got some value out of this training. I hope you work through the exercise, and I hope it gives you that clarity about who you are, what you stand for, and why people should choose you. Asking that one brand strategy question is the most powerful, the most important question you can ask yourself as you create your brand. Why should they choose you? Work with that question, come back with it. And if you want to go to the next level, if you want me to work with you and to help you implement and learn the whole game of brand building, then enroll in Brand Mastery. So thank you again so much for enrolling in this training. I hope it gave you value. I hope you will work with this question, the brand strategy question. Why should they choose us? It's the most important question you can ask yourself. And if you play with these other questions leading up to the main question, you will actually have a brand strategy. Now, building a brand is a little bit more complex than just answering that question, but this is the core. It's the core of your brand. It's really about who you are, what do you stand for, and why should people choose you? And once you work that out, then you're ready for all the rest. That whole brand building part, which is essentially about translating that into your offering. Making sure that your whole business is set up in a way so that you have a simple, powerful system that operates just as you want to, so you can deliver on that promise, on that experience time and time again, that you can create that marketing machine that makes sure that people really hear about you, that they know about you, and that they ultimately choose you. That is, the name of the game. And so I hope to see you on the Brand Mastery Program if you feel this is something for you. If you're on the fence, if you have a question, just send it my way. I will answer it for you. And whether I see you there or not, it's been a privilege to serve you. And until we meet the next time, all the best to you, and thanks again for being part of this.